Hi everyone, and welcome to another review from Class 47 Peter. And in today's review we're here to have a look at a Bachmann model, as you can see. And in today's review we are not here to have a look at a new model this time. Well, technically in one way it is a new model, in the sense of it's new to my collection, but it's not a new release in terms of being an actual release, because this model is an older release. And today we're here to have a look at the GWR 8750 Pannier tank, which this is the fourth Pannier tank that I now have. I have two 5700s and a 6400, and so now I have an 8750, which is a model I've been after for ages and something I've been meaning to get hold of for a while now, and so now I finally have one. And this particular model, although it does not show it in the photograph in the box, this model I have is in the BR lined black livery with the early emblem. Now originally I was going to go for the unlined BR black livery with the early emblem, but then when I came across this one in the lined black livery, I just had to go for it. And the reason I went for this particular livery is, well, two reasons. First of all, it's a little bit of livery variety. I have a BR unlined black Pannier. I also have the Pannier tank that came with the Railway Children train pack, which is the Pannier from the Railway Children film. And I also have a Pannier in GWR green. And so having one in lined black adds a little bit of variety, if you know what I mean, in terms of Panniers, but also models as well, because there aren't many BR lined black locomotives I have. Well, not GWR locos anyway. I do have other lined black models, but not lined black GWR locos, if you get what I'm saying. And another reason why I went for this particular livery is because this is the livery that 9600 is in, which is a Pannier that I have seen on numerous occasions on Tysley Open Day events, and it's also a Pannier I have ridden behind as well. And so that is the other reason why I went for this particular livery of model. It's also the Pannier that can run on the main line as well. I've never seen it run on the main line, but I've seen it at Tysley Open Day events, and I've also, on one of those events, got to ride behind it. And so it made sense to go for this particular livery, I feel. Right, so now we come to the unboxing, but first of all we get this leaflet, which is from S&J Models, which is where the model came from, and it's just telling you that they want the stock off you. Then we open up the model by opening the box, which this is Bachmann's older packaging, because they no longer use their polystyrene packaging. And there's also a price tag there inside the box tab, which is unusual. Then we come on to removing the card insert, which you don't get anymore. And on the front we have a nice picture there of the real locomotive in a different livery, and on the back we have a drawing of the locomotive and some brief history as well. You can pause and read all that if you want. I'm not going to stop you doing so. Then we come on to the instruction manual, otherwise known as the care sheet or spare sheet, whatever you want to call it. And it's basically just showing all the parts to the model, which if you lose a part, then you can actually get replacement parts for them, which is why there's all these little numbers by the side of the part shown illustrated. We also get a bit of a note about running in, which is important for models. And also there's another note which also tells you about ordering specific spare parts and tells you about the certain parts being numbered. We now come on to the bag of details, which in this case all we get is a brake pipe which is fitted on the back of the locomotive. And that's because in this case the brake pipe on the front of the loco is already attached. Not by me, that's how it comes as you get the model. Why they couldn't attach the other brake pipe on, or just have it that both brake pipes that you can attach yourself, is a little bit odd, but there we go. But the bag of details is not the only thing that we get in the box. You also get this little curious thing, which I have no idea what it is. I have come across it before, and it's something that Bachmann did put in a few of the models originally, but they don't seem to do it now. But I have no idea what this thing is. Is it supposed to be like some sort of security tag of some sort to stop people pinching the model, or is it just as a novelty, like a souvenir sort of thing? I don't know. If you know, please do leave your comments below, but I've come across it before and I didn't know what it was then, and I still don't know what it is now. And I also don't really see the point of it, because even back then Bachmann did not put these in every single model, and they don't do it anymore now, so I really can't understand what the whole point of putting these was when they did it then with a few models, which is a little bit curious there. But there we go. But if you know, like I say, comments below, but I just have no idea what it is. It baffles me. I mean, is it supposed to be a keyring or something as well, or whatever? I don't know. Well, not a keyring, but something that you could probably attach onto your keys, which I suppose you could do if you wanted. But I just don't know what it is and what it's there for. So now we take the model out of the packaging. To do that, we just put our finger in the hole that's in the back of the polystyrene packaging and just push the model out very carefully. Not the best packaging, I have to say, but there we go. I personally prefer the polystyrene packaging boxes that split in two. But there's a bit of polystyrene there on the model, so I'll just get rid of that. And then once doing that, we just get rid of the polystyrene tray, and then we can review the model in detail. Right, now the first thing I'm going to talk about, as I always do in these reviews, is talk about the weight. Now this model does have some weight in it, so it is fairly heavy. It's not massively heavy, like, for example, the Hornby J50, which is incredibly heavy and has a lot of weight in it. But this model does have some weight in there, so even though it's not as heavy as the J50, it has enough weight in there to be able to pull a train. And that's important, because, as I keep saying in these reviews, the weight is important. Because the weight is there to help the model pull trains, and without the weight, well, the model would basically be useless and wouldn't be of much use to you. Now normally at this point I'll talk about the buffers, but before I do so I want to talk about the couplings, because in the case of this model the couplings are different. Normally with most Bachmann models you get slim tension lock couplings, but in this case you don't. You get medium sized couplings that I have not seen before. I have seen couplings similar to these ones, where the coupling hook is a big fat chunky plastic one which has a spring mechanism in it, which is the type of coupling that Bachmann used in the days when they first produced models for the market. In this case it's a similar coupling, but is fixed in place with a dovetail, or as I prefer to call it, dolphin tail, NEM socket. This is the sort of couplings I've not seen before in a Bachmann model, but I will be changing these couplings later on. So all I'll be doing is just taking the couplings out of the NEM socket and putting in some slimmer tension ones, which I do have some in my spares box. Now we move on to the buffers, which the buffers on this model are sprung loaded, so if you like your sprung buffers it will certainly keep me quiet, but for me personally I don't really have much care for them. Moving on to the buffer beam detail, which we have a coupling hook there on the front, so you could fit a chain link coupling on there if you wanted to, and also we have some rivets on the buffer beam, which is what you see on the real panniers in real life. And also on the buffers there are also some rivet detail on them as well, which looks really nice. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a brake pipe on the front there, which this one is already attached on the front. The one at the back I will attach later, which is the one that you put on yourself. I've got to be honest though, the brake pipe in this case could do with a bit of detailing up, because in this case it just looks like a piece of black plastic that's been curved into shape of a brake pipe and just fixed on the buffer beam. In this case what they could have done, and this is something I will do at a later date, is paint the part of the brake pipe that you see on the running board to paint it red, which is something that you did see in reality with the brake pipes, to make it look a bit better. Then we move on to the smokebox door. On the front we have a running plate with the locomotive's running number printed on the front, 8763. We also have some rivets under the smokebox door and at the side, as you can see. And also on the front we have a shed code. And the shed code in this case reads 81A, and also we have a separately fitted smokebox door dart. And I say smokebox door dart because one of them is moulded on the smokebox door, but one is also separately fitted. And that is actually a nice touch that they've done that. But nowadays you don't tend to see that. You nowadays get smokebox door darts that are separately fitted anyway, but I do like in this case how they have at least had one of them that's separately fitted and one that's moulded on. On top of the locomotive's water tanks we have some separately fitted small metal handrails, which is a bit of detail that you see on the panniers in real life, and I do love how they've had that bit of detail on the model. We then have a nice chimney, or funnel as some people call it, and we have some rivets around that as well, which is a nice bit of detail, and also we have some ring detail of some sort on top of the tanks, as you can see there. Not too sure what it's there for, but it's there. And it's a nice bit of detail to have, and it's something that you do see on the panniers in reality, so there you go. We also have some pipe work under the running plate as well as a few rivets, and we have a footstep there. We also have some brake rigging or brake rods under the wheels, and we also can't forget the side rods, or coupling rods as some people like to call them. We also have a wheel arch there on the running board, as well as rivets on the smoke box, as you can just about make out. And also you can see some daylight there under the tanks there, and also you might just be able to see the locomotive's boiler there. You can just get a glimpse of that, and also what looks like some pipe work there of some sort under the tanks. We also have a toolbox there just in front of the wheel splasher there, or wheel arch, whatever you want to call it. And also have some more pipe work and some other bit of detail there just by the cab under the tank, which looks very nice. The pipe work itself is not painted, but that's something that you can do yourself. Also on the chassis of the model you can just about make out some rivet detail, and that is a brilliant bit of detail because in reality on the chassis, on the frames of the locomotives, they have rivet detail. I just love how they incorporate rivet detail on the chassis of the models, because it makes the model look all the more realistic. We've also got separately fitted metal handrails down the sides of the locomotive's water tanks, and they curve around the front of the smoke box door, just like they do on the real locomotive. We also have a nice dome in the middle of the water tank. We also have some water filler caps that don't open, but they don't really need to be fair. And we have some other detail on top of the water tanks, such as washout plugs and pipe work. We've also got the GWR style safety valve, and we've also got whistles there as well as the whistle guard, if that's what it's called, there as well too. And we also have some glazing in the front cab windows, and there's also some rivet detail around the windows there too. Moving on to the cab roof, we have a cab roof vent that doesn't open, but it doesn't really need to. As long as it's there, then it's there. And we've also got some more rivets on there as well. Also on the cab roof we have a separately fitted metal handrail that's also attached to the cab sides, and that is a nice bit of detail to have because you also see that on the real panniers, and I like how that bit of detail is there on the model. We also have some cab steps with some rivets on as well, as you can see, just under the running plate where the cab is. We also have some more separately fitted metal handrails down the sides of the cab, and also some cab doors with some rivets beside them. We've also got some rivets on the cab sides and at the sides of the bunker, and another separately fitted metal handrail there. And also we have this little bit of detail which acts as steps so the crew can climb up onto the bunker. We also have the GWR loco running plate, 8763, printed on the sides, and the little C printed above it, which I do believe in this case is the power classification for the loco. We now move on to the inside of the cab interior detail. As you can see in this part of the cab we have some coal in the chute, in the inside chute I should say. And also there is a little bit of detail in there that you can just about make out in the corner there, on the top right left hand corner. I don't know what it is, but it is painted. For the firebox detail, it is there, but it's not painted. In fact, there isn't really much painted detail inside the model. But a bit of detail that is painted is the lever here, which I think might be reversing lever of some sort, and it is painted. It's probably the only bit of detail that's painted inside the cab. In fact, that little bit of detail I pointed out earlier that was painted is probably for this lever in question. You could paint the other details inside the cab if you wanted to. I'm not really going to do it, at least I don't plan to, but I may do it at a later date perhaps, I don't know. But at this point I'm not really planning on doing so. But there is detail there though, so it still looks nice, just not painted. Moving on to the back of the locomotive, we have guard irons on the rear cab windows, and also we do have some rivet detail as well, as you can see. We also do have some coal in the bunker. The coal load is not removable, but you can scatter real coal over the plastic coal in the bunker, and I shall be adding a real coal load into the bunker, and I'll just be scattering it on top of the plastic coal load, being it's not removable. But that is what you can do with coal loads that isn't removable. That just doesn't mean you can't add real coal just because it's not removable, because you can do it. Moving on to the bunker, we have lots of rivets as well as some separately fitted metal handrails, and we also have some lamp irons on the bunker, and also we have some hooks on the back which is to hang fire iron tools on, and also we have the holes for the rear brake pipes to go into, as well as rivet detail and a hook on the back of the buffer beam. We also have some sprung buffers just like the front ones were. Now the livery and the finish of this locomotive is spot on. It's a nice even coat of paint. The correct shade of black is important, and that is what it does have. And also I just love the lining on the tanks and around the bunker and the cab sides. And also we can't forget the BR Early emblem that is crisply printed on the sides of the tanks, and it just looks stunning. Some things I will just point out though is that on the front of the running board of the loco there should be some lamp irons fitted. There are lamp irons on the bunker, but there are none present on the running board. And also there should be a lamp iron above the smelt box door in front of the chimney, but that's not present either. Because if you look at the panniers again in real life, there are lamp irons on the front of the loco. But you can add this detail yourself. You can get lamp irons that some companies make, but you can also add them yourself by making them yourself. But adding my own lamp irons I shall be doing later on. And then moving on to the other side of the model, the detail, it's pretty much the same. One little thing I forgot to mention though is that we do have on both sides of the tanks some smaller metal handrails. As you can see just under the bigger handrails that run all the way around the sides of the tanks. But you get that on both sides of the tanks, but on this side of the loco there's not really any detailed difference. It's pretty much just like the panniers in real life. Although, another thing I should point out, one side should have a reversing lever, something else that is missing on these models. But again, you can add them yourself. But it would have been nice if they had fitted it on though, to be fair. Okay, now before we come on to the shots of the model running around on the layout, in between filming the shots of the loco running on the layout, I did some detail work with the model, as you can see here. And this is something I don't normally do in these review videos, but being after taking all the shots of the models for the detail parts of this review, and before running it on the track, I decided to add some detail parts and change things. And again, this is something I don't normally do in these review videos, but because I had done it before running the model, I just thought it would be worthy adding it in this video. So, what have I done? Well, first of all, I have replaced the couplings the model came with, and I fitted some slimmer tension lock couplings, which I had in my space box as I mentioned earlier in the video. And all I've done is just pulled the couplings out of the NEM socket and slotted the slimmer couplings in. Also, I have added a real coal load in the bunker, and I have also added some lamp irons on the model, as I said I was going to do. And in this case what I've done is I've basically got some staples, cut them to size, painted them up black, and then glued them in place using Yoo-hoo glue gel, which works really well. As well as adding lamp irons on the running board and above the smoke box door in front of the chimney, I've also added a couple of lamp irons by the toolbox on the side of the running board, because looking at the photos in real life they did have some lamp irons on the sides on the running board as well. I've also added the rear brake pipe, of course, wasn't going to leave it out, but what I've also done is I've added some fire iron tools, which, if you look at Panniers in Reality and Preservation, the hooks on the back were indeed used, or are used, to put fire iron tools on. What I've done here is I've added a shovel and a poking iron of some sort. They came unpainted because they came from a Hornby detail pack, so what I've done is I've painted them up and then glued them in place. And I've also added a bucket there on the back, which adds to that detail. And what I've also done is, you can't quite see it as well in the photos because it shows up better in reality, but I have weathered the shovel a bit, and what I've just done is I've just placed the shovel in the real coal, and it's just basically left some coal dust on it. Basically, that's all I've done. I could have used black wash, but I don't have any present. And what I've also done is I've also added a little hammer on the coal load, which is glued in place, and the hammer is just there to break up any larger lumps of coal, and so it adds to that little bit of detail. I haven't added a reversing lever because I wasn't really going to make one from scratch because it would be hard, so I'm going to leave it off. But I haven't got around to painting the front brake pipe that I said I was going to do, but I'll be doing that at a later date. We now come on to the running of the model, in which straight out of the box the model runs smoothly around the layout. And this is what we expect when we receive new models. We don't expect any juddering or jerky movements from the models, and we don't expect motors burning out or anything like that. We expect them to run smoothly, which is what we want. And you can hear how smooth the mechanism works, and you can see how smooth this model runs. After running the 8750 round the layout on its own, we then ran the model with the rank of suburban coaches. Now, I know in terms of a loaded test run there's only 3 coaches behind the model, but it still shows how important the weight is. Because even if this model just has 3 coaches behind it, if there was no weight, trust me, even a model with no weight would not be able to pull 3 coaches. That is why the weight is important, so it doesn't matter how long your trains are, the weight still provides the traction so the model can pull the stock around the layout, no matter how big or small the trains are. So overall, the Bachmann 1850 Pannier tank is a model that I recommend, and it is a model that is definitely worth getting. Yes, there are a few detail parts that are absent from the model that should be there, that I'm not going to go into again, because I've already mentioned them. But you can add those detail parts on yourself, as what I've done with this model, as you see in this review video. So all is not lost. But you've got to have a pannier on your layout, or even several. And the 8750 is definitely one to have on your layout. So that brings us on to the end of this review video, and I'm going to rate the Bachmann 8750 pannier tank an 8 out of 10, based on what I've said about it. This has been Class 47 Peter, reviewing the Bachmann 8750 pannier, and I'll see you again soon for the next review video. But until then, ta-ta for now, and look after yourselves.